Ideological purity, white as the driven snow. I am your host, Ideological, and I am still only 2 drinks away from being completely black-pilled. In a world, in a time, in a place possessed such as we are by the proclaimed virtues of ideological purity, we prove on a global scale that we have not learned anything from our history. We live and we do not learn. One set of ideas or another, it does not matter to the vacuum that is humanity, or more to the point, the faulty memory of humanity. For some reason or other, time and again, one set of ideas will rise above all others and settle in our confused cosmic collective consciousness and promptly become the default state of thought and of being for one and all within the anthill we inhabit. If one does not submit to this set of ideas, one will be made to submit to this set of ideas, through shaming, bullying, harassment, misrepresentations, social ostracizing, removal of livelihood, and more. One set of ideas happy slapped into our cultural zeitgeist for decades, from one set of young eyes to another in sanctified halls of supposed learning, passed down through generations, a genetic defect presented as the truth, the one truth, the truth fantastic. Only this one path to tread, and none other. This is indeed a frightening tendency. Inevitably, it leads to a lack of nuance, a lack of balance, to a one-sided narrative where up is up and down is also up, as long as up and down can be made to be 2 sides of the same coin. And it will be made to be 2 sides of the same coin through an incredible display of mental gymnastics designed in just such a way as to show both sides of the coin at the same time. We slip and we slide, and then we fall, once again, into the realm of political propaganda and indoctrination. Truth be told, we probably never left. Voices squawk, speak, and present, and all voices present themselves to be the one truth, the true truth, the new old truth of aeons past and ages present. Then one voice, presenting viciously one voice, one side, one set of ideas, managed to rise above all other voices in the cacophony of cerebral screeching and gutter-mouthed madness that is the battlefield of propaganda. It wins the popular vote through a massive and fantastic manipulation of our very empathetic natures, twisting and turning words and truths in a manner subtle, sublime, magical and majestic, so that the words and meanings resonate wonderfully with our own inner vibrations of what is just and what is right and what is true and what is proper. A fantastic twisting and turning, marvelously engineered so as to make sense when spoken and when read. The surface narrative surfaces and wins the popular vote, and so the people are won over to the one side, the one idea, the one ideology deemed by itself to be the only true ideology, the only true path, winning its place through dishonesty or violence or both. And when once the place is won, the power grabbed and the people made subject to the propaganda, the place, the power and the propaganda are not easily done away with. It lingers, it grows, and it festers, infecting safe and sane and healthy tissue all around it. For the sake of not burning the infected tissue out, for the sake of keeping the infection spreading, the infection needs to make sure we know that it is not, in fact, an infection, but a necessary part of our body. Thus, the ideology is presented as fact and as truth from early childhood, and still presented as truth and as fact through all manners and all means in media and in common dialogue, in political nonsense speech from political nonsense politicians more interested in their own careers than in speaking truth. Babble-mouthed and helpful idiots furthering the cause of the ideology and of the infection, building not upon any system of value within themselves, but a wish to remain popular, elected and in a position of power. No semblance of critical thought, no semblance of self-ownership. No one wants to be on the outside, all want to be popular, to be part of the in-group, the now, the clique and hive and swing of things. And so they pose with t-shirts proudly promoting the one set of ideas as the true path towards equal treatment of one and of all, and do lip service in front of the altar of the dominant ideology, lest they be purged themselves and relocated to the gulag for re-education. This is what a feminist look like, they'll say with a hollow voice, and I'll be damned if I don't wear a t-shirt proudly labeling myself a follower of the Church of the Latter-day Offended, never gazing beneath the surface narrative of equality and prosperity and truth and beauty, And just as North Korea is the pinnacle of democracy, because it is in the name of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, feminism is about equality, because it is in the definition of the movement, and all evidence to the contrary be damned. The immediate virtue signal of me being moral and just and right and proper is far better and more important than thinking, seeing and understanding the beast whose cause I am championing. Best to follow the ideology. Showcase myself to be of ideological purity, lest the zealots push me out of my profession and out of society itself. Questioning the dominant ideology is a surefire way to get caught in the crossfires of ideological warfare, which, for all intents and purposes where feminism is concerned, mirrors spiritual warfare. Label it as this or as that on the surface. And those who do not gaze beneath the surface will not see the rot for lack of looking, thinking and smelling. The further into the subconscious this ideology pushes itself, the harder it is to do away with. It has been pushed and pushed for decades, indoctrinated into us in ways that would not have been accepted were it any other set of ideas. Imagine, if you will, Catholicism being pushed and promoted in public schools as the one and only truth of our day and age. Or any other religion for that matter. People would rightly be up in arms. And yet, feminism is allowed in our cultural madness to be taught as the true path towards salvation and enlightenment, to tangle us all from an early age within its web of empty words, hollow lies and vacuous moral grandstanding. An ideology pushed and promoted in schools supposedly free of political indoctrination. What a fantastic time to be alive. A neutral place of learning, accepting where feminism is concerned, because feminism is the truth and nothing but the truth in the eyes and minds of the fervent followers of the victim cult. So it is not indoctrination. It is not pushing an ideology. It is pushing the truth. To the ideologically possessed and willfully blind, truth is whatever the hell they say it is. Evidence to the contrary need not apply, because they do not believe in it, and so it is dismissed out of hand and done away with. Out of sight, out of mind. The greatest idea the devil ever had was to convince people that he is not real. This ought to prove the grip on our society which this ideology have managed to gain. Clear evidence to the contrary of their claims are done away with, and no one cares about this. And those attempting to showcase this evidence are done away with and stuck with all manners of derogatory and horrible labels. Labeled as the enemy of the people by the promoters and propagandists of the ideology, as well as by the public at large. Beings who have been indoctrinated into useful idiots and military stormtroopers for the ideology. To do their bidding and their dirty work. To do away with the non-believers, the heretics, the witches and warlocks, the foul free thinkers of our day and age, the horrible bringers of nuance and balance into the infected discussion. To do away with the apostates. How can one be against feminism? It is only about equality, you know. Well, here is evidence to the contrary. Oh well, women have it worse, you know. Okay, here is evidence to the contrary. Fuck you, you misogynist. Everyone, come get the misogynist. He hates and harasses women. I bet he beats his wife as well. Burn the witch, kill the non-believer, destroy his family, destroy his bloodline. He is out of line. Those who oppose feminism is the witches of our age. And so it goes. Here we sit, we who oppose the feminist dogma, anxiously awaiting the gulag and our re-education, waiting for one of our close feminist friends or relatives to come into our lives with many a flirt and a flutter, to show us the errors of our ways and bring unto us the light of salvation, pointing to one disproven talking point after the other of the feminist propaganda circus, disregarding any voices in opposition and waving it away as wrongthink, never even considering the voices in opposition or the evidence at hand. Genital mutilation of infant boys being legal, while genital mutilation of girls are illegal, being waved away as a non-issue, despite the clear and blatant double standard of the thing. Domestic violence being painted as men's violence against women, when it need not be viewed through a gendered lens at all, thus causing male victims of domestic violence to be disbelieved and not finding any support, more often than not being painted as the perpetrator of violence despite being the victim. This does not matter to the mind of the feminist. Men don't matter, only women. Odd that this clear gendered double standard comes from the voice claiming to be about equal treatment of the genders. If feminism really believed that the genders should be treated equally, they ought to treat the genders equally. This means offering understanding, sympathy, empathy and aid to men as well as women. This means allowing for the understanding that both men and women are capable of both good and evil, and that the vast majority of both are not guilty of evil. This means considering men and women both as human beings, both able to victimize and be victimized by the other. No one gender has a monopoly on violence, and no one gender has a monopoly on being a victim of violence. And, with men being far more likely to be the victim of violent assault than women are, I find it incredibly interesting how we choose to focus on ending violence against women, the minority of victims. Surely, were we to operate on the basis of equality, the focus should be on ending violence against all. Or should we allow the funding and the awareness raising to go such as the feminists make it go, towards the demographics suffering the most of the issue? It should be about ending violence against men. Of course, this does not resonate within the feminist mind, since that is a warped and destroyed mind. Men do most of the violence is their rebuttal, as if that in and of itself is an argument. So what, I say to that? Should we care less about the victim because he happens to share the gender of his victimizer? What manner of moon logic is this? This only makes sense if you do not treat the genders equally. Worst fucking patriarchy ever. Women are so horribly oppressed, you know, and feminism is the underdog fighting the top dog, the anti-establishment factor in our split down the middle societies, where men and women are in constant war by the insistence of feminism. The weird and peculiar instance where the underdog is the top dog, pretending to be the underdog so as to gain popular vote and sympathy. Because everyone loves an underdog. Everyone loves to see the underdog rise to prominence and succeed where it was doomed to fail. The obvious fact that feminism is the establishment, and has been for decades, matter little to the promoters, followers and believers in the ideology, the cult, the religion, the sect, the madness. Because they want to be the underdog. They want to be the brave warriors for truth and justice. They want to view themselves as fighting the good fight, and they sure as hell do not want to confront themselves and maybe have to change their minds. Because the stubborn nature of humanity reaches further than our willful blindness in regards to history and our tendency to repeat every single failure we have ever done ad infinitum. And the cause to champion is the moral and just cause to champion. And it is the moral and just cause to champion because the cause have told them this, time and again, making sure that everyone does nothing but scan the surface by bullying the ones who dare stare into the abyss, by becoming the abyss staring back. It is excruciatingly simple to flock to the banner of the popular cause. One meets little resistance then, and is accepted into the hive and seen as one who plays the game of life proper, not some weird hermit who refuses to play the game of life proper. Our anthill has no need for outcasts. Everyone is equally inferior, both within and without. There has to be a war, otherwise people might start thinking. So why not make it a gender war? Why not pit man and woman against each other, and in so doing promoting the idea that A. It was men that started it all through being men and nothing but that. B. Feminism is the banner under which all women gather and fight the wickedness of men, and to which banner some men, learning the errors of their ways, flock so as to be allies and worthy of women. C. All men everywhere benefit from the oppression of women. And D. Any hatred towards men by feminism or women is justified due to the false idea that men started it all. Beat this idea into the impressionable minds of kids, and very, very soon you will see the blatant hatred of men being considered justified, to such an extent that misandry don't reel is the words of choice by the gracious feminist hive mind, which is clearly only about equality, yet sees no qualms in labeling all men as guilty and accountable for the bad actions of one man, and in so doing pushing for laws and legislations favoring women at the expense of men. Equality means nothing when supremacy has become the norm. And supremacy has become the norm through countless years of pure and unopposed propaganda and indoctrination, in which an invisible god figure bogeyman dubbed the patriarchy will be the default scapegoat of everything. Men kill themselves more? Well, that's the patriarchy for you. Women choose to stay at home? Well, that's the patriarchy for you. More men die at work than women by an incredible amount? Well, that's the patriarchy for you. Women choose to be strippers or grid girls? Well, that's the patriarchy for you. Men are conscripted and made to go to war? Well, that's the patriarchy for you. And so it goes, onwards and ever onwards, creating a figurehead to fight, a free-floating illusionary conspiracy theory grounded not in reality but in a very human longing for something quick, simple and easy to blame when things go wrong. A quick and easy answer to complex questions. It is the fault of patriarchy, considering men to be of so much more worth than women, that men are the disposable and expendable ones, whereas women must be protected. It would have been the worst patriarchy ever, were the propaganda not so ingrained in our society that the default answer then is that patriarchy hurts men too. It only helps the men at the top. Then completely disregarding the women at the top in order to feed their bogeyman myth. And through this myth, being able to dismiss and disregard any issues facing men brought up by men as misogyny, wishing to take away from women. Because sharing resources, be those resources material or emotional, equally goes completely against the tenets of feminism, seekers of equality that they of course are. All must be treated equally, but women must receive more help. More funding must go towards women's issues. Women must be granted this or that at the expense of men, in the quest for equal treatment of the genders. And men need not receive anything, not even an ear willing to listen or hands willing to help. Men must help, and if men cannot help, they are unnecessary men, and we have no use for them. Which, of course, is painted as the fault of the patriarchy. Clever. To my mind, there is little wonder that there is such a disregard for the issues facing men, as well as the experiences of men. When the view of both society and of history begins with the idea that men, and only men, have had power and freedom throughout history where women have lacked both, and that men as a group have oppressed women as a group throughout history, it is easy to disregard men. The black and white thinking of Group A good, Group B bad echoes down through the ages. There is no need to consider the issues and experiences of the group considered the oppressors, the wielders of power, because their experiences are the only experiences told and considered through the annals of history. And so it is time that Group A gets considered. Just a damn shame that things are not as simple as that, but it can easily be made out to be as simple as that. Just drive the ideology home, and the social pressures will do the rest. Crank the handle of purity and make the great machine of society purge the ones who do not conform to the essence of purity that is the dominant ideology, the pure and unbending law of the land. Purge them with the wealthy machine of propaganda, infecting the minds of the hive with the notion that opposition to the ideology is opposition to equality, and that everyone opposing it also opposes the stability and safety of our system, our society, our machine, our hive, and, most importantly, our women. In the feminist utopia, everyone gets bread to eat and wood to feed their ovens, excepting men who gets neither bread nor wood, especially not in the mornings. Excepting those who do not subscribe to the dominant ideology of our day and age. They will not participate, and so they deserve neither. The only thing they deserve is assassination of character, and loud calls for re-education through the gibbering nonsense that is social media, through the fantastical hellscape that is the immediate knee-jerk reaction of those who have not delved beneath the surface, who have seen nothing but the tip of the iceberg, who have not felt the frenzied charge and attack of the ideology and its followers upon their minds and their bodies, who are not marked and scarred eternally by the might and claws and teeth of the beast. We are being governed, watched, and metaphysically killed by the viral infection, ripples spreading outwards from the center, great waves beating against us and knocking us down. We who are not ideologically pure will be shamed and ostracized for raising our voices in concern, for daring to think for ourselves and question the dominant narrative of the here and now, the ferocious vulgarity preached by the followers of the Church of the Latter-day Offended, whose willful blindness, stubborn egotism, ideological indoctrination and roars of existential dread and rage whenever opposition is met leads towards a lack of nuanced debate. There is no debate to be had when the only tactic used against opposing views are lies, slander and guttural roars of disgust. Lack of arguments hiding behind moral outrage. Lack of insight and lack of thought and lack of rebuttal masked behind the eternal battle cry of those who do not see that their minds are closed and the key thrown away by the ideologues who fed them lies from childhood on. The battle cry that says nothing but "This is wrong because it offends me," showing nothing but a demand to shut down the debate on grounds of perceived moral wrongs, caring nothing for the truth or for the facts or for anything but the ideology said to be the only ideology caring for equality, the only ideology being moral, the only ideology being just, the ideology of feminism, claiming to be nothing but a movement for human rights, yet being nothing but yet another ideology demanding complete and utter blind submission from every member of society. As it was yesterday, so it shall be today. Only the names and the seasons change. The tribe remains the same. To follow, to submit, or to be cast out. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this ramble as well as my other ramblings. Please consider sharing, liking, subscribing and all that jazz. That would help the message, such as it is, be manspread far and wide. Take a look at the links down below as well, if you please. Catch you next time.